I'm gonna start this video off by saying a couple of things. One, my ear burns. So if you see me put this to my ear, it ain't a cell phone. Two, I got my family here. We got cooking and kids. So if y'all hear all that noise, you know what's going on. But Minnesota, what in the world is going on up there? Every week it goes from that's crazy to nah, throw the whole state away and just start over. And somehow every story keeps circling back to the same community, the same fraud rings, the same loopholes, and the same governor who's pretending that none of this is happening. Let's start with this clip right here, the one that kicked it all off.
Look, I don't know if it's the official numbers yet, but Omar Fateh is losing the polls in Minneapolis. And looks like he's going to lose, and the whole reason why he lost is because of his own people. I am Somali, and I can admit, bro, our people is the most divided people in the world. We are bringing this Qabilism thing to America. The same thing that killed our country, the tribalism, is what we're bringing to America, and it's affecting real-world politics. And yes, I've done my homework on Jacob Fry. He's been the mayor for I don't know how long, he's been the mayor for some time. Whether you agree with Omar's political views or not, he wanted to bring change, and he believed in his people to back him. Jacob Fry, congratulations, you won fair and square, bro. Amazing effort by him. But to my people, you guys let a guy come into our community, drink shah with you, go to these cultural events, and then you guys got his vote. I know Omar won't say it, but I'll say it. I know he feels betrayed. We can't stay unified for shit, and it's hella sad, bro. Look, I don't know if it's the official.
See, this right here is the part people outside Minnesota don't even understand. He's not talking about America. He's talking about Kabbalism or Qabilism. It's the word I'm just learning, you know, when clans get together and do extreme stuff. But yeah, clan politics, tribal loyalty, and the same thing that ripped Somalia apart in the 90s. And he's straight up saying, we brought the same problem to America. Bro, that's not me saying it. That's not Trump saying it. That's them saying it. Minnesota didn't become divided. Minnesota imported a division that already existed somewhere else. And apparently it didn't stop at politics, because this next clip, oh, new problem.
Bombshell ICE sweep in Minneapolis, St. Paul finds 50% of immigrants had committed immigration fraud. 50% of immigrants had committed immigration fraud in the city of Minneapolis. The city of Ilhan Omar, the city of Jacob Frey, who's not leftist enough for Ilhan Omar, because it's not just about how leftist you are, it's about whether you also adhere to jihadist ideology. Politics are just a tool to propagate Islam to these individuals, to make the cities of the United States unlivable for infidels. And immigration fraud is a big part of this. Remember, in the religion of Islam, Muslims are permitted to engage in taqiyya, which is a form of lying. They are permitted to misrepresent themselves and their beliefs and their goals and their politics and the plots that are unfolding domestically in the United States, if their lying helps achieve an Islamic caliphate better, more effectively, more successfully. It's a sort of twisted marriage of the communists and the Islamists, because they have a shared enemy, you. And this immigration fraud plays a large role in what's happening right now. It was no coincidence that in New York City, after Zohran Mamdani was elected, we saw these startling statistics that said of New Yorkers who were born in New York, or born in the United States even, the majority of those people voted for Andrew Cuomo. But of foreign-born New Yorkers, meaning naturalized citizens, I hope, who had not been born in the United States, the majority of them voted for Zohran Mamdani. It's part of the plot.
So now ICE runs Operation Twin Shield in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Audits just over 1,000 cases, and suddenly the number looks like a Netflix documentary. Fake marriages, fake green cards, fake asylum claims, fake everything, except the part where taxpayers get robbed blind. And look, some people online ran with the 50% number, but the official audit figure is closer to 28 from what I'm researching. Either way, 28% of anything being fraudulent is insane. If 28% of Chick-fil-A sandwiches were fake, look, I'll just say Atlanta would ride. But here's the crazy part. This is only where the story starts. It's only where it starts. Back in Minnesota,
Usman Kamara is the 77th person charged in the massive $300 million Feeding Our Future fraud case. According to the indictment, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Kamara claimed to serve more than 300,000 meals to children out of his small grocery store in North Minneapolis. Federal prosecutors say Kay's Dollar Grocery and Deli, also called Kay's African Market, had already been disqualified from participating in SNAP because of suspected fraud. Now, a grand jury indictment charges him with stealing about $1 million meant to feed hungry children. The owner is also charged with wire fraud for allegedly using more than $200,000 of the fraud money to buy the building where his store is located.
If I own this building and I want to be here for the next 20, 30 years, nobody can kick me out. It's mine.
NPR News interviewed Kamara in 2020 after he defended his store from rioters after the murder of George Floyd. Now, since he allegedly purchased the building with fraud money, the indictment says it's subject to forfeiture, so the feds can recoup some of the funds. However, past cases have indicated that other money referenced in the indictment, including a $90,000 wire transfer to Hong Kong, alleged bribes paid to a Feeding Our Future employee, and funds spent to pay off Kamara's credit cards, is likely gone. So the Feeding Our Future worker who Kamara allegedly paid $87,000 in bribes is charged, but that person fled to Somalia before the very first indictments came down. Of the 77 total defendants, 56 of them have been convicted so far. Julie.
So I noticed you.
Wow. Bro, 77 people indicted. 77. And this dude stole millions? Oh, 1 million, it says, right? Brought a whole store with it and then paid a $90,000 bribe to a person approving the paperwork, and then she fled to Somalia. Can I make this up, y'all? I'll tell you what. Ain't think. Minnesota told us this was a feeding program for kids during COVID. Turns out it was a feeding program for luxury shopping sprees, BMWs, and overseas bribes. But wait. Now, you think after a fraud case that big, Minnesota's justice system would tighten up, right? Let's check it.
A stunning decision by a Hennepin County judge throwing out a jury's guilty verdict in a $7.2 million home health care fraud case. Prosecutors say Abdi Fattah Yusuf and his wife ran Promise Health out of a mailbox in a building where several other home health care companies were supposedly located. They were accused of buying luxury items for themselves with the taxpayer money they allegedly stole, overbilling Medicaid and the PCA scam. Even though the jury swiftly convicted Yusuf, Judge Sarah West says there wasn't enough direct evidence that he knew fraud was occurring in his company. Jurors I talked to were surprised. Listen to this.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence that this case would be thrown out. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever.
The Attorney General has already appealed this decision. I'm Lou Bergoose. Follow for more news.
So
a stunning decision
a jury convicts a man of stealing $7.2 million in Medicaid money. 4 hours of deliberation. A judge wakes up one morning like, nah, y'all got it wrong. Bro, 4 hours. That means the jury walked in like, yep, guilty. But y'all want to eat after, right? And then the judge overturns the whole thing because there wasn't enough direct evidence he personally knew. Ma'am. If 22,000 in Nike receipts and 80,000 at a furniture store didn't spark any suspicion, I don't know what evidence you're waiting for. What evidence, you're waiting for? A selfie holding the stolen money? Okay. But jurors weren't done talking, I tell you that.
A big reversal in a $7.2 million fraud case in Hennepin County. The judge has thrown out the jury's guilty verdict. This is a case Lou Bergoose has been following since the beginning. The judge's actions could make it harder to prosecute state fraud cases in the future. Lou?
Julie, it's extremely rare for a judge to reverse a jury's verdict in a criminal case. Jurors I spoke to today told me it was not a difficult decision to find Abdi Fattah Yusuf guilty in a Medicaid billing scheme, and they're surprised by this development. At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company, Promise Health, out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife, Lol Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
It's reversing or overturning a jury's verdict.
Defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who's not affiliated with this case, reviewed the decision and analyzed it for KARE 11 News. He says Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and that she believed the state did not rule out other reasonable inferences.
That, in fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case. That's what it comes down to.
Despite the ruling, even Judge West wrote that she is troubled by the manner in which fraud was able to be perpetuated at Promise Health.
I was stunned.
State Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, says she's now reviewing if any state laws need to be tightened.
We want to strengthen state law so that we can get prosecutions out of these cases, because clearly a jury thought he was guilty.
Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
The attorney for Mr. Yusuf, Ian Burrell, sent me a statement today that says, in part, Judge West's ruling affirms what we have maintained from the beginning, that our client, Mr. Yusuf, was wrongfully accused and did not commit fraud or racketeering. The Attorney General's office filed an appeal this afternoon, so the Minnesota Court of Appeals will take a second look at this decision. Julie.
So, Lou, did Mr. Tamburino, did he have any kind of emotional reaction? And this is pretty stunning. This does not happen.
Yeah, he leaned towards the idea that this was kind of a one-off and that it would have a good chance at appeal. But the worry is that there's so many other cases just like it where somebody's in the exact same position as Mr. Yusuf but is charged with fraud. And if the judge can determine that maybe they didn't know that the fraud was going on underneath them in the case, then other judges could throw it out just like this one.
All right. Do you know how quickly the Court of Appeals would take this up? Any idea?
Probably months.
All right. Thank you, Lou.
Mm-hmm.
Obvious guilt. That's literally what the juror said. Minnesota really out here speed running. How to lose a state in 10 years. Fraud. And apparently the courts are tired of dealing with it. But all of this builds to one moment. One moment that took this from local scandal to national spotlight. And it wasn't the media, wasn't the courts, it wasn't Minnesota leadership, it was him.
John, you heard them in that clip we played. They said they're not going anywhere. And a lot of these temporary protected status people from Somalia, this has gone back 30 years. It was first granted in 91 under H.W. Bush. Okay, that was when the country was torn apart by civil war. But it just reminds us that if we import people from countries with very, very different value systems than ours, it's fraught with problems. And now, all these years later, we see what's happened to the Minneapolis, which is one of my favorite places in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well, the focus of criticism coming from the left and the lack of concern about the fraud tells you all you need to know, in my opinion, of how concerned they are at the exposure of what's taking place now. It really was an amazing 1-2 punch of what took place last week. And thank you to Christopher and City Journal for that reporting, because that really laid the groundwork for what Trump did. You see, Trump and his wanting to revoke the TPS, the temporary protected status, it's only going to have an impact on some 400 Somali immigrants here in Minnesota. The more important aspect of it, though, is that local media cannot ignore the story anymore. If it hadn't been for Trump going and saying he was going to revoke TPS, media would have completely ignored this amazing reporting by Christopher and City Journal. And now all the media is talking about the fraud. It is front and center. And Laura, one more thing. It is time for Governor Tim Walz to resign. We've blown past this being a ballot solvable problem. If you had a CEO working for a company with the amount of baggage and fraud just a fraction of what Governor Tim Walz has occurred under his watch,
Shameless.
they would have been gone a long time ago. It's time for Walz to resign.
Amen to that. This is the part that people don't want to admit. If Trump never said he was revoking TPS for Somalis, none of this hits the mainstream. Walz wouldn't have kept doing interviews about Minnesota values. Local outlets would have buried the city journal investigation. Every fraud case would stay isolated. But the second Trump steps in, the second he said he's ending that 30-day temporary protected status, boom, the entire Minnesota media suddenly started talking about, well, they actually started doing journalism. And that's why Walz now has a massive problem. Because once the spotlight turns on you, it does not, it don't turn back off. Minnesota's getting exposed from every angle, it seems. Culture, fraud, oversight, courts, and leadership. And the one person who forced the truth to the surface was the same man the media swore would destroy democracy. But if you're watching this, I'm sure you're like, nah. He just destroyed the cover-up. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, put Walz to resign. Yeah, that's what we're going to put. I don't got none of my kids close for them to do the outro. Oh, Princess, come here. Say, check on a friend. Wait, what are you? I can't even remember my quote. What are I be saying? Y'all be safe. Go check on a friend today. You can be saving their life.
You said what again?
Say, y'all be safe.
Y'all be safe.
Go check on a friend today.
Go check on a friend today.
You could be saving their life.
And you could be saving their life. Bye.
Good, and say peace.
Peace.